It's time once again for Conversations with Bob and Sherry. Hello, Sherry.
Hey, how are ya? So
Very
we're
good.
gonna start with this conversation with Joe Biden. His first statement after the Nashville shooting is he was making fun of chocolate chip ice cream. When everyone was talking about it, I thought it was a joke.
Like
Look,
a fake
a
video.
fake or somebody bought the wrong clip, and I didn't think anything of it. And I watched it myself. I just think, well, boy, this is the wrong timing. But hopefully, I'll send you the clip if you can incorporate it into our show, so people can see it.
Okay.
From the White House.
My name is Joe Biden. I'm Dr. Joe Biden's husband. And I ate Jenny's ice cream, chocolate chip. I came down because I heard there was chocolate chip ice cream. By the way, I have a whole refrigerator full upstairs. You think I'm kidding? I'm not. God. Ben, how are you, pal? One of the best guys in the United States Congress, Ben Cardin. Folks, welcome to the White House. It's a delight to have you all here. And who are those good-looking kids back there? They're your kids, all four of them? Well, stand up, guys.
John, we'll jump back in here. Considering the moment,
we were
there's
told
a
that
school shooting that just happened left 3 children dead, 3 adults dead, shooters dead, and we were told he would be addressing this off the top.
Yeah, it's rather surprising. I thought that a somber President Biden would have come to the podium here and addressed the school shooting.
So we're going to go back to TikTok, and we all know what TikTok is, 150 millions on it and everything. There was a bill proposed by Senator Mark Warner from Virginia. He's a Democrat. This is a Senate bill of 686. It's called the Restrict Act. So on the surface, the Restrict Act is created because of banning of TikTok. But if you read into the bills, it gets a little scary as to it's very much a government overreach into our private lives. It will restrict and allow the government to take a look who would do transaction with, who are we talking to, and I was reading 3-4 pages of the bill. I just thought I just recently ordered some clothes from this website called Shein, which is Chinese export website. Okay. Now, does that qualify me as doing transaction with foreign adversary?
Yeah, I mean, if it's broad enough, it leaves it up to them. It's sort of like with the Patriot Act and charging people with domestic terrorism. It's so broad, they can apply it to anyone.
So after 9/11, a lot of people supported the Patriot Act, but that also allowed the government to start spying on everyday citizens through the Patriot Act.
Right.
Now this Restrict Act can allow the government to look into every transaction we do. So if I'm buying stuff from China, if I'm talking to my friends on WeChat from China, it's that qualify me for communicating with foreign adversary. If they deem yes, I could be jailed for 20 years, up to 20 years. Now, this is very similar from what China did to my family during the Cultural Revolution, because we were writing letters to our family in United States. They were, my grandparents and the entire family was labeled spy by writing letter to anybody in the United States, because at the time, United States was a foreign adversary to China at the time. And we're kind of getting into that again. So if I order some discounted clothes from Shein, this website, does that make me a bad person? I mean, according to this act,
Yeah.
If they want to, they can say that.
So they say you're not allowed to use TikTok, but if you had set up a VPN, you could access TikTok because they can't necessarily block it. That could be cause imprisonment for up to 20 years. So it gets really messy. I think that, the federal government saying that you can't put TikTok on federal devices, I think is a good thing. China and other countries, I guess, have this option where TikTok can be limited to 40 minutes for young children. The U.S. could insist to have that feature enabled here in the U.S. Yes,
Right.
Kids can find their way around it. Sure they could. But Chinese kids can too.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's other ways to go about this without putting regular, everyday Americans at risk.
Or they can restrict the content like in China, right? Educational
Right.
content to children. So parents will want their kids to go on, say, look at this, you're learning, science and math. We can do that too, because if they can cater to a certain age, and they should be able to cater to kids like
Right.
China does.
Well, there are certain laws out now where, say certain drugs, it's really not a criminal offense to possess them, but it's a criminal offense to sell them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been decriminalized. So you can approach it that way. You could say, look, if you want to ban TikTok from the country, you could say, look, TikTok, you're banned. You're not allowed to be here. But as far as Americans sneaking around and using VPNs and going after it, why would you penalize American citizens for that?
Well, China does the same thing. So in China, you're not
Right.
allowed Facebook, but people do go through VPN and get Facebook.
Exactly.
So,
But yeah, so now maybe China probably has penalties for citizens that subvert the system. They might, but I don't care. So the U.S. government, if they wanted to say, look, TikTok, we don't like what you're doing. You're bad for our kids. You're bad for everything. You're not allowed to have your product in our country. Boom. Then that's fine. But I don't think Americans should be susceptible to serious criminal penalties if they go around the system and get it illegally.
well, does that make the Biden family a problem because they got money from China?
Yeah, should.
What about Hollywood?
Yeah. Well,
Where are we going from with this?
you and I both know these laws only apply to regular folk. They don't apply to those people on the top.
Yeah. So I just wanted to, ask everybody. We're going to put a link on our website. This.
Did it pass?
No, it was proposed.
Okay.
It's not. It's in the Senate.
Okay. So this is our job now as voters to say, don't do this. We don't want it.
Well, yeah, I think it's good to inform our viewers to kind of looking into this, because everybody's busy every day. They don't get to look into every news, and
Right.
a lot of things are not being talked about on the news either.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to go in and talk about it, and hopefully it will inform people and say, this is something worth looking into. The bill is not long. It's 55 pages. It's shorter than Harry Potter books. So I just posted. And then another thing they just passed going to impact us on a day-to-day. So it's a Parents' Bill of Rights passed by House Republican.
5 Republicans voted against it. I guess all Democrats voted against it.
All Democrats voted against it. But it did pass the House.
Oh, there were several Democrat absences enabled legislation to pass despite the handful of GOP defections. So Schumer's already said it's not going to pass the Senate. Introduced by Louisiana Rep. Julia Letlow, requires schools to notify parents that they have the right to review curriculum and school budget. Okay, nothing should be wrong with that. Inspect books and other library materials and receive information about any violent activity in the school. It would also prohibit schools from selling student information. Elementary schools or schools housing grades 5 through 8 would be required to obtain parental consent before changing a student's pronouns or preferred name or allowing a student to change their sex-based accommodations like locker rooms or bathrooms. She said it's not an attempt to have Congress dictate curriculum or determine books in the library, but it aims to bring more transparency and accountability to education, allowing parents to be informed and when they have questions and concerns to lawfully bring them to their school board. Schools that don't comply with the bill would be in danger of losing federal funds.
I think that's fantastic because yesterday, as we were in that meeting listening to the lady from Moms for Liberty, Allegheny County, talk about their books in libraries are just not appropriate for kids. If you're showing two naked boy or girl having sex in different positions, that's not a book you should be putting in school libraries. I'm sorry. That's basically pornography. So I think parents have every right to know about that.
All right, so this is from an NPR article, so this is not right wing. Everything I just wrote was, how they quoted the Republican position, which is news. This is sounding like real news. So listen to what the Democrats are fiercely opposed to it. They dubbed it Politics Over Parents Act. They claim it seeks to codify already existing parent rights and politicizes the classroom. Rather than actually invest in empowering parents, making sure parents have the opportunity to be engaged and involved in the education of their children, the extreme MAGA Republicans, there's that word again, want to jam their right-wing ideology down the throats of students, teachers, and parents throughout America. So let me just point something out. So far, not one substantive criticism has been made here. Everything here is this like rhetoric that these guys, it's attacking the Republican. It doesn't make any substantive claim that this part of this bill will have this effect. So let's see if we get to any of that.
Right.
It said they argue it puts LGBT students at risk. It's asking the government to force the outing of LGBT people before they are ready. Despite Republican lawmakers repeatedly claiming the legislation doesn't ban books, Democrats argue the bill could provide a legal basis for book bans and censorship.
I don't understand how that will harm LGBTQ people if you want transparency on what kind of curriculum books they're teaching the kids. I don't understand that.
Okay, so that it doesn't get much more substantive of that. They do mention in the 2021 to 21 to 22 school year, more than 1,600 book titles were banned, according to a report by PEN America, which advocates for freedom of expression. So, go ahead. What was your question again?
I said, I don't understand by having transparency, how would they harm books and curriculums? How would that harm gay students?
Okay. Well, here's how they've advanced this ideology in the schools to say that it's fine for teachers to cut parents out. If you look back over the gay lesbian situation, specifically to Christian parents, but others, I guess. Mm-hmm. There's this thing that has happened where once the parents find out, and certain Christian parents are guilty of this, once they find out their kids claim to be gay or lesbian, they kick them out of the house. So they put them out on the street, or they, do things to try to force them to not be gay or whatever. So, the gay lesbian community did create these sort of places for homeless youth to go. Mm-hmm. So in essence, these parents there were parents, I don't know how many, but in essence, there were parents that were casting their kids out into the street and basically putting them in the arms of, adult gay lesbian people to receive them in. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing became parents can't be trusted. Parents are harmful to LGBT youth. So now they take this into the schools and they say same kind of thing. If a kid comes into the school and says, look, if a girl comes in and says, I think I'm really a boy, what they're saying is if the school then informs the parents, you're outing the kid and you're putting them into a potentially dangerous situation like these. Now, I don't know how much of this kicking kids out of the home is still going on. I'm sure if you go back in time, the further back you go, the more frequent it was. And I think I'm certain that some Christian parents were worried about what their fellow Christians would think if they had a, gay kid because of the way some of the churches were teaching on it. So I acknowledge that that's a problem. Here's what they don't acknowledge. The DeSantis Don't Say Gay bill is from kindergarten to third grade.
Right.
8 years old. Okay? So you're telling me that a parent would kick an 8-year-old kid out on the street? No, I don't think so. Okay?
No.
And second of all, so you're saying it's okay to take this vulnerable 8-year-old kid and have a teacher, let's say a teacher is an activist, which a lot of them are. They have flags in their classrooms and everything.
Right.
And they go, are you sure you're not really a boy? So they kind of coax them down that path, and they say, don't worry, I'm not going to tell your parents. I won't out you. That's a bad, bad thing. So the biggest thing missing out of the DeSantis criticism is the age. So this act said, what, 8th grade? So 8th grade, you're going up to like 13. So they're
That's
basically
still very
saying,
young. I still would not want anyone to influence my child. And the problem is, and I know, I mean, I just have the struggle with my son. We were doing 2-step equation. I'm teaching him one way, and his teacher teaching him another way. So he wanted to follow the way the teacher teaches him, which I personally think is a dumb way.
Are we talking Common Core math?
I don't know if it's Common Core or not, but the way she's showing me she did it, I'm like, this is the dumbest way she's doing it. But I'm fighting with the teacher. So, yes, your kid would tend to listen to the teacher more than the parents because teacher is some sort of authority.
What grade's your son in?
7th.
7th. Okay, so this bill would apply to him, I guess, through next year. So it sounds like they've have it applying to, preteens, maybe 13s included in there.
Which I agree. As a parent, I agree.
What's that?
As a parent, I completely agree.
Most parents, if they had an honest assessment of what is in this bill, they would agree as well.
Yeah.
And what I say is, an honest one is, I'll post this NPR article on our page. If you read it, the comments by the Republicans, and this is what news used to be, by the way, the comments by the Republicans are very substantive and specific to, we're doing this because of this. We're doing this because of this. And if you read the criticism from the Democrats, there's none of that, okay? It's this is right-wing, ultra-MAGA. That has nothing to do with the bill. They say, oh, they're politicizing. Give me an example. There are no examples. The only thing that gets close to being specific is this outing transgender youth, or maybe they threw it in LGBT. But the fact of the matter is, you're talking 8th grade. So you're talking preteen kids. It's. I would say if I'm a judge or just an objective, middle of the road kind of guy, and I read that, I'd be like, I think the Republicans have made a real case here, and the Democrats have not. They failed to make any sort of substantive attack on this bill. If anyone's doing politics here, I see it being the Democrats, because they cannot give me a specific, if this part of the bill will have this effect and this is what will happen and this is bad for people. Not once do they go to the age.
Yeah, the age thing is very important. And I think in today's world, with all the media out there, I cannot imagine a parent will kick their children out for being gay or lesbian or trans. As a matter of fact, there's more celebration of that than anything else. I think the mothers of white straight boys are the ones, like, don't say, they're the one have to walk a little bit of fine line these days. Because you got to believe in women. I mean, because the white straight boys, they're the oppressor based on the critical race theory. They're the oppressor class, right? Everybody else are victims.
The DeSantis bill, they're now saying, okay, here's all these unintended consequences, right? So by dictating what teachers can and can't talk to with certain kids has some weird thing. Can they not teach history if it involves a gay person? Can a child come into the classroom who happens to have parents who are both women or both men, a gay couple? Is the kid breaking some kind of law just by saying my mom's? Okay, so they bring up all these examples. My point to this guy was there was once upon a time in America, not too far long ago, that no matter how much you disagreed with somebody, you did not mess with their kids.
Right.
Adults did not insert themselves between a parent and a child. Only bad people did that. There was an unspoken universal respect for a parent's relationship with their child, except if obvious abuse. Now that's gone. Mm-hmm. So now you're forced to put legislation in there to dictate the interactions between teacher and student. That's not good. That's not an ideal situation. Laws are imperfect, and as a conservative, I don't think that that's a great thing to have. However, there's a real live problem here. Kids are being put at risk. It's not the fault of DeSantis. It's not the fault of me. It's the fault of the people who would violate that universal principle. That's the problem. And the same thing happens with the books. It's like banning assault weapons. Okay? How do you define it? No matter how you do it, you're going to have these ridiculous bans. It's like the masking things. Remember, you're not allowed to play on the swing set and things like it comes up absurd and ridiculous because you're trying to micromanage people's behavior. And that's always going to be the case. So there was an old saying that it's difficult to define pornography as opposed to art. You have art and you have pornography. It's almost impossible to define them. Okay, but when you look at it, you know when you're looking at pornography versus art.
Exactly.
Okay,
I'm like, it's not too hard to define art or pornography.
It's how do you write it down in a law? Like, let's say somebody decides to say, "I disagree. That's not pornography. That's art." What if you have a large portion of Americans now saying, "I believe that pornography is really art"? Now you need to have a law that dictates and draws that line. How do you know? There's nudity. I see genitalia. Is the David statue art or pornography? So that was one of the examples, by the way, in Florida where a teacher was afraid of, presenting the David, or it was a principal, the David statue. So the answer, though, is this problem should not exist. If people had a, common morality, don't mess with people's kids, okay? No matter how much strongly you feel about your beliefs and your ideology, don't force it on kids. Respect the kids' parents. Respect their parents. Let them do it. Don't do that. So to them, it's quite all right to take a third grader and say, look, you might be a boy. Don't tell your parents. We're going to put you in boy clothes and, we'll get you hormones. We'll do all this for you. Don't tell that's fine. Okay. But God forbid an adult goes to their kid and says, do you want to hear about eternal life through Jesus Christ? Which one of those messages is likely to do more harm? So they would universally say you can't talk about Jesus to kids in school, but you can talk about altering their bodies and you can coach them down into this ideology without their parents' knowledge.
Right.
Come on. It's ridiculous. So
it is. And
yes, the laws are imperfect. I don't want to see a law that's going to micromanage the books and everything in school, but the only way to get rid of the laws is stop doing what you're doing. Stop being the problem. Start being part of the solution.
Well,
that's my rant.